Hello and welcome to the MMA Live Chat Show. I'm Rich Davie and it's Wednesday, March 5th, 2014. On today's show, we'll be discussing MMA news, specifically the decision of Nevada State Athletic Commission and the UFC to ban TRT in MMA immediately and the impact that this decision will have on other athletic commissions. And if time allows, we'll more than likely discuss another topic in the Final Thoughts segment. On today's show, we have yours truly, and Damon Gazelle. Thanks for taking part in another show, Damon. I appreciate you taking the time to be here to discuss some MMA news. Go ahead and say hello to anybody that might be listening.
How's it going? Thanks, Rich, for having me.
Okay, buddy, thanks again for being here. Less than a week ago on February 27th, news broke about the Nevada State Athletic Commission's decision to ban TRT not only in MMA, but apparently in all combat sports. And shortly after that news broke, DFW announced that the UFC will also ban TRT in the UFC. Many fighters seem to be in favor of the decision to ban TRT, and as I've mentioned on past shows, several fighters that I have spoken to and have interviewed view TRT as a legitimate means of cheating. Obviously, this decision will impact all athletic state commissions because once the precedent for such an action has been set by the Nevada State Athletic Commission, other state athletic commissions will more than likely follow suit, not to mention the fact that any state that hosts UFC events, fighters will have no choice but to comply with the TRT ban, unless, of course, other athletic commissions choose not to follow suit and to continue to allow TRT and TUEs, which would mean if other MMA organizations do not go along with the ban of TRT, fighters who choose to continue using TRT would be able to continue fighting in those states and MMA organizations that choose to go their own way on the ban. One of the immediate impacts of this decision has been, of course, the removal of Vitor Belfort versus Chris Weidman matchup on the upcoming UFC 173 event on May 24th, 2014. And apparently this is a decision by the UFC brass that is said to be an effort that will allow Vitor Belfort plenty of time to acclimate to fighting without TRT. Comments on that news, Damon?
It's great news. I know Dana White has been saying in the past that he wants to get rid of TRT in the sport, and with good reason too. It has the potential for abuse. TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, is synthetic testosterone, and testosterone is actually a steroid hormone. So it's basically letting fighters actually take steroids, but under a medical name. So any way they can get rid of that is great.
Yeah, I actually used to be a supporter of it, and again, I've mentioned this on other shows in the past. And, I was always of the mindset, as long as it's within the rules and you fall within the parameters of what's acceptable, that's fine. But apparently we're seeing over and over again that fighters are not simply using, they're abusing, and they're pushing things right to the limit. And, of course, that's just to give them an edge, when they get in the octagon and fight their opponent. So, I've changed my mind, and I agree. I think the TRT ban is a good thing.
Yeah, and fighters, they're always going to test the boundaries, so it's best just to get it out of there.
Yeah, and according to the NSAC, the statistical numbers indicate that low testosterone levels in young, healthy males is a rare thing, and that many fighters who are seeking TRT TUEs are using the excuse that they've suffered some sort of head trauma, which apparently is a valid reason as to why otherwise healthy young individuals may have low testosterone levels. And of course, going along with that, you've got past abuse of PEDs and steroids. So those two things really contribute to probably the majority of MMA fighters wanting to go on TRT. And, when you look at things, is head trauma really a valid reason to allow fighters to be granted TRTs or TUEs? Because this is only going to allow fighters who have taken head trauma and abuse to continue fighting and suffer more head trauma. So,
if ESPN had a really good expose on it, and they outlined the use of TRT in the UFC and other MMA organizations compared to other professional sports, including football, which is another sport that you're going to take a lot of uh, get a lot of concussions, or take a lot of head hits, and there's really not that many people in the NFL that are even allowed to use the therapeutic use exemption. So uh, the numbers that expose, I believe, is one of the main reasons that the NSAC actually came to the conclusion that they did, are the ruling they did to go ahead and ban it, and it's the right thing to do. Looking at other sports and then looking at MMA, it was amazing to see that article by ESPN, and it far outweighed every other professional sport combined.
Yeah, I know. They've been actually talking about, I don't know if it was that specific article, but there's been talk in MMA circles now how the numbers, for fighters in MMA and the UFC to have, TUEs for TRT is extremely high. And of course, they make up that other argument that some people actually have low testosterone levels since early on. And I'm sure there are a few cases where, I forget what they call the condition, but there are some cases, I'm sure, where some fighters actually have naturally occurring low testosterone levels. But again, is that a reason to go ahead and take TRT and get the TUEs and fight in MMA if your testosterone levels aren't where they're at? Maybe you simply should not be fighting in combat sports.
Exactly. I mean, if you need testosterone replacement therapy, then it's your body telling you that you really can't compete at the level that you need to be, and you have to use something to get you to that level. So I don't believe you should be allowed to take anything to make you able to compete at that high of a level. If you have to take some sort of supplement like testosterone replacement therapy, then it's your body telling you can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I agree. And also, when you're talking about the other reason that fighters may have low testosterone levels is because of past abuse of PEDs, and fighters probably should not be granted TRT TUEs if they've been abusing PEDs simply to game the system and gain an edge over their opponents, which, as I mentioned earlier, that's basically flat out cheating. And in the sport, you really don't need that. Having guys that are cheating because they cheated in the past and they can continue to have the need to cheat by getting TRT.
Exactly. It's kind of a double-edged sword when you think of it. I mean, it's going to hurt the people that would actually need it, but really shouldn't be fighting because they're getting to that point in their life to where they do need it, and then you've got the cheaters who are going to use it and abuse it like they would steroids. Um, it it's a situation where it's best just to do away with it to make sure that the playing field is level. Fighters, they go out there and they risk everything when they're on the line, in a match. I mean, anything can happen. We've seen in like the WWE, for instance, of fighters or wrestlers, just doing moves and actually getting really hurt. And we haven't really seen it in the UFC other than leg breaks. But, these guys, a slam, we've seen some stingers where people have landed on their head. The best thing to do is to keep testosterone replacement therapy out of it, and to keep it safe as you can in the sport. Because when you've got these guys, like I think Sonnen was like 16-1 on his TRT when he was fighting Anderson Silva. That's a major boost for a fighter.
Not to mention the side effects of doing steroids and TRT, because I'm seeing now on TV a lot that lawyers are starting to advertise. Have you had a stroke? Have you had a heart attack? Have you died from it? And also, you mentioned, the wrestling, entertainment wrestling, I call it. The cases in entertainment wrestling are phenomenal, where you're looking at the death rates of entertainment wrestlers. A lot of them have died in their 40s from abusing steroids and TRT. So
yeah, I mean it's not very safe. I mean, it is meant for men that are much older than these fighters that are taking it are, even older than Dan Henderson.
yeah,
It's at 30 your testosterone can start dropping, but it only drops so much, and then it drops throughout the years. For somebody that really needs that, I would say maybe in their 50s if they're looking to still have that sex drive and
but
keep
is
their
that even
marriage
worth
going.
it at that age if it's going to give you strokes and heart attacks and possibly even cause death? I say no.
I it's a medicine. Every medicine has that risk, but I do see there being possibly a higher risk with that because it is steroids, and what happened with some of the people that have been on steroids. I mean, look at Thiago Silva. Did his past steroid abuse play a factor in what he did?
Yeah, it's so hard to say because we really haven't heard his side of the story, and his wife is saying that it was something else. She was claiming that it was cocaine rage or something like that. But again, we haven't heard anything from him. I know Anthony Johnson came out just yesterday and made a comment on his Facebook page about Thiago Silva, and he said the guy's in good spirits. He wants to come back to fighting. As soon as he gets out, he's going back to training. And if anybody talks bad about him, it'll earn you an instant ban and block from my Facebook page. So.
I mean, with Silva too, though. I mean, when you're talking about love, that a lot of men and women have done some crazy, stupid shit for love. So that could just be an instance of him just being crazy jealous. But you gotta also look too, though, that the possibilities, because everybody knows, just about everybody knows what happened with Chris Benoit from the WWE.
Yeah, that was a tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, the potential is there, and like TRT, it is a steroid. I mean, it's a steroid hormone.
Yeah, and initially when the news came out about Vitor Belfort being removed from the card, it was said that he withdrew and he didn't want to fight so that he could prepare to acclimate to the situation with no TRT and MMA. And then after DFW or somebody in the UFC came out and made that comment, he refuted that. He said, well, no, it wasn't me. I was actually removed from the card.
Yeah, Lorenzo Fertitta actually made a statement about that, and you know what? That's one of those things where I cannot stand the UFC. You know what? Yeah, you've got to promote yourself, but when you come out and you lie to your fans like that, instead of just telling us the truth, we're pretty able to handle the news of you saying, well, we're taking Vitor Belfort out of it because of this new ruling. We can handle that. Don't lie to us about it, And then
as it turns out, his reasoning for doing that was because he didn't want the fight to go on, and if the fight went on and he did in fact test positive for steroids or high testosterone levels, then that would pretty much shoot the whole fight down. And
yeah, I totally agree with them removing him from him, but I do not agree with them coming up with a statement and putting it out for. I guess they came up with a statement, but whatever the thing was, it was them that actually pulled Vitor from the card, not the other way around. Vitor didn't step down.
And they tried to sugarcoat it by saying, "Oh, well, we did that for his benefit so that he could acclimate to being able to fight in the UFC without causing damage to his body, and he could get used to training and fighting without the TRT. So it'll be very interesting to see how he does when he does in fact come back.
Yeah, I mean, he was probably doing it for a while, after he got caught doing the steroids. I don't know if he went right to TRT afterwards.
Yeah.
But he's not going to keep that physique he's got, I guarantee you that.
Exactly. Not too many men look like that aren't abusing.
Exactly. Especially his age. I mean, you could be, but you're going to be doing 4 to 5 hours of training and weightlifting a day to keep that physique. I mean, look at Arnold. Arnold's gone to flab.
Look at what his body looks like now that he quit,
Yeah, he's gone to flab.
He's not a flabber man. Look at you. You are the flabber man.
Exactly. That's another thing that they don't understand. Putting on all them muscles, once they can't keep it up, a lot of that muscle turns to fat.
Yeah, and also on Vitor Belfort's fan page on Facebook, they came out with a statement that says his doctor actually wanted him to take a 90-day wind down from TRT so he could train safely without it before his next fight, which pretty much goes hand in hand with what the UFC said after the fact when all the news came out and they had to refute the story where Belfort said he was withdrawing on his own. So
yeah,
kind of makes you think maybe they got together and said, okay, hey, we need to get our stories straight here.
Yeah, it's one of those things, though. Just come out and tell us the truth. We can handle it, Don't bring your legitimacy down by lying to us, and then we'll find out later. Nobody likes that.
Yeah.
I hate being lied to.
Well, it seems that you and I are on the same page, and it sounds like a lot of people, not only in MMA, but the industry as well, and fighters, and lots of fans are thinking that this is a good thing. I'm not really hearing a whole lot from anybody that is actually in support of using TRT. Have you heard anything like that?
No, I haven't heard anybody supporting it. I haven't seen anything from any of the fighters. Even Belfort says, I believe he had said that he still plans on doing it without. So
I mean, no choice if he wants to fight in the UFC. Like I said earlier, if the other MMA organizations decide not to go with the ban, and other states decide not to go along with the ban, then of course fighters who are on TRT can fight in those states and those MMA organizations. But I think now that the ball is rolling, probably other athletic commissions are going to jump on board with this.
Yeah, I think, and they would, if those organizations did allow that, they would have to know that their legitimacy would go down as well.
Yeah, and they may even quite possibly be opening themselves up for some sort of litigation down the road if fighters do in fact continue using and get hurt from using the TRT or suffer the side effects such as stroke, heart attack, death, things like that.
Yeah, it's a great thing that the Nevada State Athletic Commission ruled that way, and it's a great thing that the UFC went along and decided to enforce it throughout their organization. That I was happy as hell to hear them do that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, so now what we're seeing there is, being that this TRT shakeup had Belfort removed from the 173 card, we're going to be seeing Chris Weidman versus Lyoto Machida at UFC 173. So that'll be a good fight.
Yeah, it looks to be a good card because Junior Sagano is also going to be facing Stipe Miocic.
Yes.
Two great boxers. So
yeah. Should be interesting. And we were talking about that on one of the shows just recently as well.
Yeah, it's starting to look like a really good card. I'm getting excited for it. Was actually rather wanting to see Machida fight Weidman than Belfort because of the stigma that if Belfort did win, did the TRT win or did Belfort win?
Right. I agree. Yeah, there's all kinds of breaking news in MMA. Unfortunately, we don't have time to cover everything, but there is one more topic I did want to cover here. We've pretty much reached the end of the show here, so let's do a really brief final thoughts segment. UFC lightweight fighter Mac Danzig has decided to retire from MMA after more than 12 years as a professional fighter. And the reason for doing so is he's citing concerns for his health in the years to come as one of those factors that drove him to call it a day in MMA now rather than later. He did mention the fact that he'd like to remain active in the sport as a coach or in some capacity as an MMA photographer or an MMA video documentarian. So did you get to see any news on that?
I did see that he is retiring. I didn't really read up on why, but I like seeing fighters hang up the gloves on their own time. There
No,
there
I'm
comes
actually
a time there comes a time when you have to retire from the sport, and it's better to do it on your own terms.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that he managed to remain in the UFC for as long as he was able to, because he's had 8 losses and 5 sporadic wins in the UFC. He was on a 3-fight losing streak, with his last one coming nearly 2 years ago against Efren Escudero. So, he was never really doing all that well in the UFC, and he had 2 3-fight losing streaks in the UFC. So,
Yeah, but he's one of those guys that he's got somewhat of a name value, and he is a placeholder. I mean, I think we're going to see less and less of that because there are so many more new fighters coming up, and I I really I like seeing placeholders, but then again, I like seeing new blood as well.
you I
You
actually
got to
thought he
get
was going
that.
to do. I actually thought he was going to do better in the UFC than expected, because I don't know if you remember, he was actually on the Ultimate Fighter 6 season, and he actually got a first round submission over Tom Spear. Remember Tommy Spear?
Not really.
Well,
I
he was
don't
that
think.
big wrestler on the Ultimate Fighter 6 season, and he looked to be one of the darlings to win the show. But man, he was taken out first round submission by Matt Danzig, and I actually was surprised by that. So I thought Danzig would actually do much better in the UFC than he did. But like I said, if you go and look at his fight record on Sherdog, it's not all that impressive. So it was probably more than the right time for him to say, I'm going to call it a day, because he just was not doing well in the upper echelon of MMA.
Yeah, yeah. You never know. Fighter can look good in one organization or on something like tough, but once they actually get up to the big leagues, because I believe the UFC is the pros when you talk about MMA, but once you get up there, it's a whole different story.
You know.
It much tougher competition.
Okay, any more comments about that before we wrap the show up?
No,
All right, buddy, we've reached the end of the show. It's time to go ahead and wrap and say goodbye. So I'll see you next time.
see you later, Rich. Thanks again for having me, and see everyone else later.
All righty, man. Bye bye.
Take it easy.